Let's talk about menopause then.
Yeah.
Starting with perimenopause.
Yeah.
You got a smile on your face.
It's something that I'm really excited is coming into conversations now, because 3 years ago, no one would say the word. I knew we had made it as women in society when the nightly news was talking about menopause. So let's go. I'm excited.
One thing I saw, which is quite an interesting observation, is in the UK this year on Apple, the most shared podcast episode in the whole country of all podcasts was a conversation I had about menopause.
Nice.
And
Congratulations. That's awesome.
it gets even better. And in the US, the most shared podcast episode of all podcasts in the US on Apple was the same guest on Mel Robbins' podcast talking about menopause. I go, that's incredible. And also crazy that in both countries, the number one most shared podcast episode was the same guest talking about the same topic.
Yep.
That doesn't surprise you?
Nope.
Why?
Well, I know this guest, and she's very good at articulating, but also we have seen this upsurge of women like myself, my age group, put myself out there. We all grew up on the understanding that we were women, we were a little bit different from men, but no one told us about menopause. And now all of a sudden, there are these extreme changes that are going on, and people are like, what's going on? And if I were to take a typical case scenario of a woman who's in her 40s and goes to a doctor and goes, you know what? I can't sleep. I am trying to exercise, but I'm so tired. I can't do it. My body is changing, and I just don't know what's going on. The general response to her 3 years ago would have been, well, look, you're a woman in her 40s who's highly stressed. You have kids on one side. You have older parents on another. You're right in the middle of your career. You have a really busy life. Here's an SSRI for anxiety and depression. It's going to help you sleep. But now, with all the conversations that have been going on, a woman in her 40s will go to a GP and for the most part will be told, well, you're in your 40s. It might be perimenopause. And this is such a relief to so many women because they're not being gaslit anymore. They're not being told that what they're feeling isn't true. It's just something to do with stress. Now they're being told, you know what? All your systems in your body are being affected because your sex hormones are changing. So remember puberty when everything was changing and no one wants to live through puberty anymore? You're on the other side of that. You're in reverse puberty, where all of your hormones are starting to downregulate. So every system in your body is being affected. Let's unpack it. Let's see what's going on. So when Mary Claire comes on and talks about menopause as an MD and talks about all the things that she's seeing in her clinic, women are like, that's me. Now I understand I'm not alone. And that's the power that's coming through all of these conversations and all of these groups like Naomi Watts' Swell group, right? They're talking about menopause. So now women are listening and keying in and going, wait a second, there actually are things that are occurring to me and I can get information, which is why these podcasts are taking off, because now women are like, I'm not just crazy. There are actually things happening to me and people understand that. Now, what can I do to help myself? Because it isn't being taught in med school. A lot of the doctors that are out there are getting information because they are seeking it out themselves and looking to people like Mary Claire and other like Louise Newson in the UK who are actually talking about it and saying, these are the things that are happening and these are the things that we know that we can do.
Gosh, it's a shame, isn't it? It's a shame that there must have been so many women over the years that went to their doctor and got really bad advice.
Yeah.
And were given antidepressant medications and stuff like that. And
well, the other side is women who are in their reproductive years who have something like PCOS or endometriosis, or they're having irregular periods and they're put on an oral contraceptive pill because the doctors don't understand that there are other things that are going on that will cause a misstep in menstrual cycle. So I get frustrated when teenage girls go to a doctor with irregular cycles and they're handed OCs like Skittles. It's like, that's not appropriate either. We have to actually understand what's going on. We know that there's irregularity in a menstrual cycle until people are around 3 years post the onset of their first menstrual cycle. It's not unusual. and OC is not the answer. If someone's still having irregularity, we have to look at lifestyle and say, hey, what's going on? If they're having really heavy menstrual bleeding, it's not about using an OC to control it. Let's look and see, why is that happening? Maybe we use an IUD, or maybe we use some other medication to help. But there's a lot of things that are not taught in med school that women are having to find out for themselves. And so when we listen to podcasts and we're hearing information from medical doctors who now have a vocal aspect of being able to touch so many people, it resonates. So now doctors are trying to find that information if they have the time. But we know the healthcare systems in most countries, doctors are so pressed for time, they don't have that opportunity.